英文。
Welcome back to A Cinema Films, your ultimate destination for everything movies, from thrilling reviews to in-depth cinematic insights. Today, we dive into the epic world of Nizatu, the highly anticipated sequel to one of China's most groundbreaking animated films. This movie takes myth, magic, and emotion to a whole new level, expanding the legendary tale of Ne Zha with stunning visuals, breathtaking action, and a story that strikes deep at the heart. Whether you're a fan of Chinese mythology or just love powerful storytelling with jaw-dropping animation, this review is one you won't want to miss. So, sit back, relax, and let's explore the world of Nizatu together, right here on A Cinema Films. Nizatu is a 2025 Chinese animated fantasy action-adventure film written and directed by Jiaozi. Serving as the direct sequel to the 2019 hit Ne Zha, the film continues to draw inspiration from the legendary Chinese mythological figure Ne Zha and the classic 16th century novel and vestige of the gods, Fangshan Yanting, by Zhu Zonglin. The story resumes with the young deity Ne Zha and his close friend Ao Bing, the Dragon Prince. Following a great sacrifice that leads to their separation, only Ne Zha's body is reborn, this time carrying within it the spirit of Ao Bing. As Ne Zha struggles with this powerful and emotional bond, he must summon Ao Bing's spirit in his battle against the malevolent Master Shen, who threatens the balance between the mortal and divine realms. Released across theaters in China on January 29, 2025, coinciding with the celebration of the Chinese New Year, Nizatu quickly became a monumental success both critically and commercially. It was met with widespread acclaim for its breathtaking animation, emotionally charged storytelling, and visually stunning action sequences that elevated Chinese animation to new international heights. The film grossed over $2.2 billion worldwide against a production budget of $80 million, setting numerous records in the global box office. It became the highest-grossing film ever in a single box office territory, the highest-grossing animated and non-English language film, and made history as the first animated feature to surpass the $2 billion mark. Based on ticket sales, it also stands as the highest-selling animated film ever produced. Furthermore, Nizatu emerged as the top-grossing film of 2025 and ranked as the fifth highest-grossing film of all time. Its English-dubbed version was later released in the United States on August 22, 2025, distributed by A24. Featuring a star-studded voice cast led by Michelle as Lady Yin, alongside Crystal Lee, Griffin Puetu, Ailsla, Vincent Rodriguez III, Riggs, and William Ute, bringing the epic tale to an even wider international audience. After Ne Zha and Ao Bing are simultaneously struck by divine lightning, their mortal forms are completely annihilated, leaving only their souls drifting between life and death. In a desperate effort to save them, Master Tai Zenran sacrifices his most powerful artifact, the seven-colored sacred lotus, using its divine energy to reconstruct their physical bodies. However, these new forms are unstable and fragile, unable to contain the immense spiritual power both Ne Zha and Ao Bing possess. Believing his son Ao Bing to be truly dead, Ao Guang, the Dragon King of the East Sea, falls into grief and rage. Consumed by vengeance, he commands the powerful Master Shen Gongbao to lead an assault on Chentang Pass. With him march the demons imprisoned beneath his palace, as well as the three remaining Dragon Kings of the Four Seas, each determined to punish humanity for what they believe to be the death of Ao Bing. As the dragon armies advance, Ao Bing, whose spirit endures within the weakened body of Ne Zha, arises to defend Chentang Pass. He fights valiantly, unleashing his remaining strength to shield the city, but the immense strain causes his unstable body to disintegrate completely. Seeing the devastation, Ao Guang reluctantly proposes a temporary ceasefire. Ne Zha and Ao Bing are to share Ne Zha's reconstructed body for 7 days. During this time, they must complete 3 perilous divine trials set by immortal Wu Liang, the austere leader of the Heavenly Chant sect. If they succeed, they will be granted a potion capable of restoring the sacred lotus and crafting a new body for Ao Bing. Should they fail, both their souls will perish, and Ao Guang's wrath will resume. The trials, overseen by Wu Liang's disciples, are normally reserved for the sect's elite demon hunters, making them a near impossible challenge. To conceal his demonic nature during the sacred tests, Ne Zha secretly consumes sleeping pills, temporarily relinquishing control of his body to Ao Bing. Together, the two complete the first 2 trials, first, by defeating an entire village of marmot demons, and second, by overcoming a ruthless master who has been training demons to enter the trials themselves. Their teamwork and mutual trust deepen as they begin to understand each other's pain and sacrifice. Meanwhile, Shen Gongbao takes command of the dragon's forces stationed at Chentang Pass. He is briefly reunited with his younger brother, Shen Xiaobao, whose loyalty still lies with humanity. Xiaobao later witnesses the violent capture of their clan's patriarch, Shen Zhengdao, who is taken prisoner by Wu Liang's sect during a brutal raid on their ancestral village. Mortally wounded, Xiaobao returns to tell Gongbao of the sect's atrocities before dying in his brother's arms, leaving Gongbao filled with guilt and fury. Before Ne Zha can begin his 3rd trial, devastating news reaches him: Chentang Pass has been destroyed. Overcome with rage and sorrow, he refuses to let Ao Bing share control and faces the final trial alone. There, he battles and defeats the mighty stone demon Shi Ji, successfully completing the challenge and earning the elixir of immortality. Master Tai uses the potion to restore the sacred lotus and regenerate Ao Bing's body once again. However, before the two can celebrate, Ne Zha joins immortal Wu Liang's forces in an assault to imprison the dragons inside Wu Liang's colossal cauldron, where the heavenly sect plans to refine both dragons and demons into powerful elixirs. The situation spirals when the remaining dragon kings betray Ao Guang, secretly forming an alliance with Wu Liang to escape the cauldron and save themselves. Li Jing and Lady Yan, Ne Zha's parents, arrive alongside Ao Bing and Tai to intervene. They reveal the shocking truth that the destruction of Chentang Pass was orchestrated by Wu Liang himself, not the dragons. Through a series of flashbacks, it becomes clear that Wu Liang and his followers manipulated events to frame Ao Guang, using the tragedy as justification to eradicate the dragons and consolidate heavenly rule. Master Shen Gongbao, realizing the extent of the deception, had taken a final stand to protect the city while Ne Zha's parents narrowly escaped. The revelation ignites a fierce confrontation between Ne Zha's group and Wu Liang's heavenly armies. During the chaotic battle, Wu Liang unleashes a devastating spell that casts Ne Zha, his parents, and their allies into the searing cauldron. As the infernal heat intensifies, the trapped souls begin to dissolve, transforming into elixirs, among them Lady Yan, whose loss devastates Ne Zha. In his grief and fury, Ne Zha absorbs the cauldron's samadhi fire, merging his soul with its divine energy and refuging his body in flames. Reborn as a being of pure power, he breaks free from the cauldron with Ao Bing at his side. Together, they rally the dragons and demons, shattering the cauldron and forcing Wu Liang's heavenly legions into retreat. In the aftermath, Ao Guang leads the surviving dragons back into the depths of the sea to hide from the celestial forces, while Ao Bing chooses to remain with Ne Zha, determined to expose Wu Liang's corruption and restore balance between heaven and earth. In a mid-credits scene, immortal Wu Liang is seen traveling to a hidden celestial prison, where he attempts to recruit the imprisoned Shen Gongbao and the disgraced patriarch Shen Zhangdao to his cause. However, his arrogance backfires when he curses a warden for mocking his injuries, causing his own entrapment within the prison's powerful seals. Meanwhile, Ne Zha's eldest Yan brothers, Jinza and Muzza, are summoned to meet Wu Liang for a new mission, only to find that he has mysteriously vanished, hinting at darker forces yet to come. The voice cast of Nizatu features an impressive lineup of actors who bring depth, emotion, and authenticity to each of the film's beloved mythological characters. La 1/4 Yanting once again voices the young Ne Zha, the reincarnation of the demon orb and the rebellious son of Li Jing and Lady Yin. His performance captures the fiery determination, defiant humor, and emotional vulnerability that define Ne Zha's complex journey from misfit to hero. As Ne Zha matures, the role transitions to Joseph Cao, a ring section #pound registered C still apostrophe YA ring currency, whose voice brings a more measured strength and emotional gravity to the adolescent version of the character, perfectly illustrating Ne Zha's growth and his deepening sense of responsibility. In the English version, Crystal Lee provides the voice for Ne Zha's childhood self, while Griffin Puita portrays him as a teenager, both delivering heartfelt performances that resonate with international audiences. Han Mo lends his voice to Ao Bing, the reincarnation of the Spirit Pearl and the noble third son of Ao Guang, the Dragon King of the East Sea. His voice performance reflects Ao Bing's inner conflict between duty and compassion, as well as his evolving friendship with Ne Zha. In the English dub, Alexler brings Ao Bing to life with a calm yet commanding tone, perfectly embodying the Dragon Prince's honor and quiet strength. Lady Yin, Ne Zha's mother and the compassionate chiefess who governs Chantang Pass alongside her husband, is voiced in Mandarin by Lao 1/4 Chi. She delivers a deeply emotional portrayal of a mother torn between love and destiny. In the English version, the role is voiced by Academy Award winner Michelle Yeoh, whose graceful yet powerful performance gives Lady Yin a commanding maternal presence that elevates every scene she appears in. Chen Hao voices Li Jing, Ne Zha's devoted father and co-ruler of Chantang Pass, portraying him as both a stern leader and a deeply conflicted parent. His English counterpart, Vincent Rodriguez III, captures Li Jing's emotional struggle and his unwavering faith in his son's redemption. The role of Tai Zhenren, Ne Zha's eccentric yet wise Taoist master who resides on Mount Kunlun, is performed by Zhang Jiaming, whose voice skillfully balances humor, wit, and wisdom. As the film's comedic relief, Tai's light-hearted personality adds warmth to the story. Riggs provides the English voice, blending charm and playfulness with the mentor's philosophical depth. Wang Dishun gives a commanding performance as Master Wu Liang, the cold, calculating leader of the Taoist Chan sect. His rich, resonant voice conveys an air of authority and menace, perfectly suiting the character's ruthless ambition. In the English version, William Ute takes on the role, bringing an ominous gravitas and icy calm to Wu Liang's portrayal. Li Nan voices Ao Guang, the Dragon King of the East Sea, whose thunderous voice embodies power and sorrow as a ruler and grieving father. Christopher Swindle voices the English version, emphasizing Ao Guang's duality, his majestic dignity and underlying pain. Yu Chen voices Ao Guang's human form, delivering a softer, more introspective tone that contrasts with his divine presence. The Dragon Queen of the West Sea, Outrun, is brought to life by Zhu Yongxi, whose elegant and commanding performance highlights the Queen's strength and compassion. Kerry Walgren voices the English version, adding a regal and maternal nuance to Outrun's character. Yang Wei delivers a standout performance as Shen Gongbao, a cunning leopard demon who has ascended to the rank of Xian and serves as both Tai's martial brother and Ao Bing's mentor. His conflicted nature is portrayed with layers of bitterness, loyalty, and guilt. Danielle Reardon voices Shen Gongbao in English, emphasizing the character's tragic complexity. The supporting cast further enriches the film's world. Yan Qizhong voices Thero, the leader of the demon hunters and one of Wu Liang's most loyal disciples, imbuing the role with an authoritative tone and sense of determination. Damien Haas voices Diro in the English version, offering a performance that balances confidence and menace. Xinglan voices Krana, a crane demon and another of Wu Liang's disciples, whose graceful yet mysterious presence adds intrigue to the story. Grace Liu's English performance captures Krana's elegance and intelligence with subtle charm. Together, this stellar Mandarin and English cast brings Nizatu to life with extraordinary emotional range and vocal artistry. Their combined performances elevate the film's mythological world, blending ancient Chinese legend with modern cinematic power, ensuring that every character from gods to mortals, dragons to demons feels vivid, memorable, and deeply human. Before the release of Ne Zha in 2019, director Jiaozi expressed that the production team would consider developing a sequel if the first film achieved strong box office results. Following the massive success of Ne Zha, which became one of China's highest-grossing animated features, the studio officially confirmed just 5 days after its release that the sequel was already in development. The new film was titled Ne Zha, The Demon Child Churns the Sea, internationally known as Nizatu, with an unprecedented production cost of 600 million yuan. Nizatu became the most expensive animated film ever produced in China, surpassing the previous record of 200 million yuan held by Deep Sea. 2023. The film also received substantial backing from Sichuan Province's Major Cultural Projects Fund, which allocates an annual budget of 300 million yuan to support large-scale creative works, reflecting the region's commitment to advancing Chinese animation on the world stage. Like its predecessor, Nizatu took approximately 5 years to complete, representing one of the most ambitious animation projects ever undertaken in China. Over 4,000 artists, animators, and technicians from 138 different animation studios across the country collaborated on the production, and more than double the 1,600 people involved in the first film. Producer Liu Wenzhang revealed that the sequel featured 3 times as many characters as the original, requiring an immense expansion of visual and technical resources. The production included more than 2,400 individual shots, with over 1,900 of them involving complex visual effects, compared to the original film's 1,800 total shots. This significant scale increase reflected the filmmaker's dedication to elevating every visual, emotional, and narrative aspect of the sequel beyond the already high standards set by the first installment. To commemorate the enormous creative effort behind the film, a behind-the-scenes documentary titled B8 tilde superscript 1 P8 tilde squared B8 tilde superscript 1 L8 tilde negation, A diaresis sedilla C sedilla A diaresis sedilla C sedilla No Innovation Without Destruction, was released online on February 10, 2025. Providing fans with an in-depth look at the technological breakthroughs, artistic experimentation, and creative perseverance that defined the making of Nizatu. For character design, the creative team completely reimagined and refined the visual style of the film to achieve greater realism and cultural authenticity. Human characters were designed with subtle layers of white facial fur to soften their features and give their skin a more lifelike texture. Director Jiaozi emphasized that every design should incorporate elements of traditional Chinese aesthetics, blending mythological motifs with modern artistry. One striking example is the character of Deer Child, whose design merges deer-like features with patterns inspired by ancient jade carving traditions found in Chinese folk art. The Dragon King Guang's initial design was influenced by the fierce and imposing Prince Kang from the 1992 classic Royal Tramp. However, after gathering feedback from early viewers, the team redesigned Guang into a more regal and dignified figure, reflecting both power and wisdom. His dragon-scale armor features intricate tattoo-like dragon patterns inspired by Chinese ink art, symbolizing strength, heritage, and divine authority. The Lingzhu version Ne Zha, introduced in this film, pays homage to the iconic 1979 Shanghai animation film studio classic Ne Zha Conquers the Dragon King, visually connecting the new film to China's animation legacy. The secondary characters and mythical creatures were equally elaborate in design. The underwater demon beasts drew inspiration from early Chinese depictions of legendary monsters, distinguished by distinctive Eastern features such as curved tusks, flowing fins, and ornate scales, setting them apart from the typically grotesque or reptilian designs found in Western fantasy. Each creature was meticulously crafted to appear unique, with skin textures combining materials resembling fish scales, elephant hide, crocodile skin, and turtle shells, giving them an otherworldly yet authentic feel. These details contributed to the film's lush, immersive world-building and visual realism. While Nizatu was loosely inspired by the 16th century Chinese novel Investiture of the Gods, Fangshan Yanyi, the filmmakers made significant narrative and thematic adaptations to create a more emotionally resonant, character-driven story. The film diverges considerably from the original myth, infusing it with modern themes of friendship, family, and redemption. In this reimagining, Nizha is portrayed as the reincarnation of a demon rather than a pure spirit, introducing moral complexity and internal conflict to his character. The Chinese title of the series includes the phrase Motong, meaning demon child, distinguishing it from other interpretations of the Ne Zha legend and giving it a unique identity. In the original Investiture of the Gods, Ne Zha is the reincarnation of the spirit Pearl, not a demon or boar chaos Pearl, and is characterized as a naive yet violent child with strong destructive tendencies. This version of the legend inspired Jiaozi's reinterpretation, presenting Ne Zha as a misunderstood hero struggling against his demonic origins. In the ancient tale, Ne Zha kills Ao Bing, the third son of the Dragon King, provoking the wrath of the Dragon Kings of the Four Seas, who threatened to flood Yanting Pass. To save his people, Ne Zha commits suicide and is later resurrected by his master Tai Zenren. His relationship with his father, Li Jing, is fraught with conflict, so much so that in some versions of the story, Ne Zha turns against his father after being denied resurrection. In contrast, Nizatu transforms these mythological elements into a story of reconciliation, loyalty, and personal growth. Many new characters, including the film's main antagonist, Master Wu Lian, and supporting figures like Shen Xiaobao, were created exclusively for this adaptation and have no counterparts in the original novel. These additions allow the film to explore new narrative dimensions within the mythological framework, blending traditional legend with modern storytelling sensibilities to craft a uniquely powerful cinematic experience. The music of Nizatu was masterfully composed by Wan Pinchu, Ru Yang, and Rock Chen, blending the grandeur of Western orchestral traditions with the soul and depth of authentic Chinese folk music. The orchestral segments were recorded at the world-renowned Vienna Synchron Stage in Austria, a studio known for its exceptional acoustic quality and association with major international film scores. This lush orchestral foundation is intricately woven together with traditional melodies and instruments representing the diverse cultural regions of China, creating a soundscape that feels both global and deeply rooted in Chinese heritage. For specific sequences, the composers incorporated distinctive musical techniques to heighten emotional and thematic impact. For instance, the cue accompanying the descent of the Dani Yuanding features Mongol Yuvan throat singing, a haunting vocal art form that conveys a sense of ancient mysticism and raw power. In contrast, the climactic battle scene fuses the piercing tones of the traditional suona, a Chinese double reed horn, with the sweeping intensity of full orchestral arrangements, symbolizing the collision of chaos and heroism. Throughout the score, an extensive range of traditional and modern instruments were employed to capture the unique essence of each character and scene. These include the pipa, a four-stringed lute, a bamboo flute, and erhu, a two-stringed fiddle, alongside regional elements like Tianjin folk art motifs, Peking opera gongs and drums, and even the African thumb piano. The inclusion of Baroque instruments and synthesizers adds an innovative layer, bridging ancient musical traditions with modern cinematic energy. The opening passage is particularly notable for its use of the grand song of the Dong ethnic group, a form of polyphonic folk singing that was inscribed on UNESCO's Intangible Cultural Heritage List in 2009. This section is performed by Yui Uchanj, an ensemble of 10 Dong women from Kai and Dongnan, Guizhou, whose voices lend the film an ethereal and culturally rich introduction. The result is a deeply immersive score that not only enhances the storytelling but also celebrates the vast musical heritage of China while elevating it through world-class orchestral production. Nizatu had a highly anticipated global release that reflected its status as one of the most ambitious animated films ever produced in China. The film was first officially announced on December 10, 2024, generating immense excitement among audiences and fans of the original Ne Zha, 2019. Its domestic release took place on January 29, 2025, coinciding with the first day of the Chinese New Year, a strategically chosen date that maximized its cultural and commercial appeal. The film premiered across multiple premium formats, including 2D, 3D, IMAX, Cinity, CGS, Dolby Cinema, and 4DX, offering audiences a variety of immersive viewing experiences suited to different theaters and preferences. Internationally, Nizatu embarked on an expansive release schedule throughout early 2025. It opened in Australia, New Zealand, and several other territories on February 13, followed by a limited release in the United States and Canada on February 14, the time to coincide with the Lunar New Year festivities and Valentine's Day weekend. Hong Kong and Macau audiences saw the film on February 22, marking its strong regional rollout. Across Southeast Asia, the film's release dates were staggered between March 6 and March 21, beginning with Singapore where Encore Films managed distribution and expanding across neighboring countries through a partnership with Warner Bros. Pictures. In Europe, Nizatu made its debut in the United Kingdom and Ireland on March 21, following special preview screenings on March 14, distributed by Trinity Sign Asia. Shortly thereafter, releases were planned across major European markets, including France, Germany, Spain, Italy, the Benelux countries, and the Scandinavian territories. Japan's release was scheduled for April 4, continuing the film's steady global rollout. Meanwhile, Encore Films and Warner Bros. Discovery India confirmed that Indian audiences would be able to watch Nizatu in theaters beginning on April 25, 2025, marking one of the most extensive international distribution campaigns ever for a Chinese animated feature. A new milestone for the film came in July 2025, when it was announced that the English-dubbed version of Nizatu would receive a theatrical release in North America on August 22, with A24 serving as the distributor. This version featured an expanded English voice cast, highlighted by Michelle Yeoh, who joined as the voice of Lady Yin. The involvement of A24 and Yeoh brought Nizatu renewed attention in Western media and significantly broadened its reach among international audiences. Following its theatrical success, the film transitioned to digital platforms. In China, Nizatu began streaming on major online streaming services starting August 2, 2025, where it quickly became one of the most watched animated films of the year. The English-dubbed version followed shortly after, with A24 releasing it for video on demand, VOD, globally on September 16, 2025. This multi-phase release strategy from Chinese New Year premieres to worldwide streaming solidified Nizatu as a groundbreaking cultural and cinematic event, showcasing the growing international influence of Chinese animation. Nizatu achieved historic and record-shattering success at the global box office, rapidly establishing itself as one of the most commercially successful animated films in history. Upon its release in China on January 29, 2025, the film witnessed an explosive opening, earning an astonishing 1.1 billion yuan, approximately $137 million, within its first 3 days. This remarkable feat made it the first film in Chinese New Year box office history to surpass the 1 billion yuan threshold in such a short span. Its momentum continued at an unprecedented pace. By the fourth day of release, the film had crossed 2 billion yuan, and just 1 day later, it soared past the 3 billion yuan mark. On its sixth day, Nizatu broke yet another milestone by exceeding 4 billion yuan in total gross, surpassing the previous record held by Detective Chinatown 3, 2021, which had achieved the same figure in over 9 days. By its eighth day in theaters, The film's box office earnings had exceeded 5 billion yuan, $684 million, breaking the record set by The Battle at Lake Changjin, 2021, as the former all-time box office champion in mainland China. In doing so, Nizatu also overtook the lifetime earnings of the original Ne Zha, 2019, securing its position as the highest-grossing animated film in Chinese history. With these achievements, the Ne Zha series became only the second film franchise in China to surpass a combined total of 10 billion yuan, $1.37 billion, across two films, joining the ranks of the nation's most lucrative cinematic properties. Remarkably, the film continued to climb, surpassing 6 billion yuan by its ninth day of release, a testament to its overwhelming popularity and strong word-of-mouth appeal. By February 8, 2025, less than 2 weeks after its debut, Nizatu had grossed over 7.2 billion yuan, nearly $1 billion, becoming the top-earning film of the Chinese New Year period and surpassing both Wolf Warrior 2, 2017, and The Battle at Lake Changjin, 2021, to become the highest-grossing Chinese film of all time. On that same day, it also became the first non-Hollywood production ever to surpass the 7 billion yuan mark worldwide, cementing its place in global box office history. Within just 11 days of release, the film outperformed the single-territory box office record of Star Wars: The Force Awakens, 2015. Which had held the record for the highest-grossing film in one market with $936.7 million. In less than 3 weeks, Nizatu had overtaken Inside Out 2, 2024, to become the highest-grossing animated film worldwide. This milestone made it the first non-American and non-English language animated feature ever to hold the global box office crown. It was also only the second animated film outside of Disney's productions to reach such heights, following Shrek 2, 2004. On March 9, 2025, Nizatu achieved another unprecedented milestone by crossing the $2 billion mark at the global box office, becoming not only the first animated and non-American film to achieve this feat but also the seventh film in cinematic history to reach that benchmark. Internationally, the film performed impressively across multiple territories. At its Los Angeles premiere on February 12, tickets for the screening at Grauman's Chinese Theater sold out almost immediately, signaling immense anticipation among both Chinese and Western audiences. In the United States, Nizatu opened to a strong $7.2 million weekend, a significant leap compared to the original film's $1.2 million debut, demonstrating the growing global appeal of Chinese animation. In Singapore, where the film was released on March 6, it achieved record-breaking numbers, grossing 300,000 Singapore dollars, approximately $225,000, on its opening day. Within 1 week, the film had earned over 2.5 million Singapore dollars, $1.875 million, shattering previous records for both opening day and total box office earnings for a Chinese-language film in the country. By March 29, distributor Clover Films announced via social media that Nizatu had exceeded 6 million Singapore dollars, $4.5 million, in total box office revenue in Singapore, solidifying its dominance across Southeast Asia. Through its combination of technical excellence, emotional storytelling, and cross-cultural appeal, Nizatu not only set new records within China but also established itself as a landmark in the global animation industry, demonstrating that Chinese cinema could achieve both critical acclaim and massive international box office success on par with the biggest Hollywood blockbusters. Nizatu received widespread critical acclaim both in China and internationally, solidifying its reputation as a landmark achievement in Chinese animation and global cinema. In China, the film became a cultural and cinematic phenomenon, praised for its storytelling depth, emotional resonance, and stunning visual artistry. It turned an impressive 8.4 out of 10 on Douban Movies, while audiences on Mayan and Tapiopiao gave it near-perfect ratings of 9.7 and 9.8. respectively. Viewers and critics alike lauded the film for its elevated production quality, intricate narrative, and emotional maturity, marking it as a rare sequel that not only matched but arguably surpassed the original in scope and execution. Red Star News commended the film's sophisticated integration of visual effects, screenplay, and philosophical underpinnings, emphasizing that its success stemmed from a solid script and accurate expression of values, adding that Nizatu proves that a respect for the audience is the real box office password. The outlet particularly praised how the film combined traditional Chinese mythology with modern cinematic storytelling, presenting a balance between cultural authenticity and mainstream entertainment. Shanghai News echoed similar sentiments, noting that the film successfully continued the unique visual style and dynamic pacing of the 2019 original. The publication applauded the sequel for improving upon the animation quality and the intensity of its large-scale battle sequences, calling them some of the most visually ambitious in the history of Chinese animation. However, it also noted that the film's plot, while emotionally engaging, offered limited suspense due to its clear moral direction and focus on character redemption rather than mystery or surprise. The Macau Post Daily published an in-depth feature that included insights from Herald Brao Ning, who offered a broader cultural perspective on the film's impact. Brao Ning highlighted Ne Zha as a powerful symbol of China's expanding soft power and cultural influence, drawing a fascinating comparison between Ne Zha and Western cultural icons like Mickey Mouse. He stated, "On an international level, as far as the growing importance of China's soft power is concerned, I believe that one day, Ne Zha can globally play an iconic role similar to the United States Mickey Mouse, a cartoon character and mascot co-created by Walt Disney in 1928. Brao Ning went on to suggest that the vast mythology surrounding Ne Zha provides an abundance of conceptual material to create many more movies, animated or live-action, that can promote Chinese culture worldwide. He also observed that Ne Zha, as a mythical and spiritual figure, possesses a much deeper historical and philosophical foundation than many Western animated icons, symbolizing courage, rebellion, and moral transformation. He concluded that China needs to further strengthen its soft power efforts. A broken bar our mighty Ne Zha could certainly help. In a broader cultural analysis, The Atlantic, referencing Jenny Zhang of Slate, discussed the diverse range of audience reactions in China, noting how the film sparked conversations about identity, myth-making, and the modernization of traditional folklore for global audiences. Zhang highlighted that Nizatu resonated across demographics, appealing not only to children and animation fans but also to adults who appreciated its deeper emotional and cultural themes. In the Western world, Nizatu was also met with strongly positive reviews from critics. On the review aggregator Rotten Tomatoes, the film holds an approval rating of 91% based on 80 reviews, with the site's critical consensus reading. Visually spectacular with a hyperactive sense of humor, Nizatu is a sequel that supercharges the original's charms while still being accessible for the uninitiated. This glowing reception earned the film the coveted certified fresh seal, distinguishing it as one of the few Chinese animated films to achieve such recognition. Meanwhile, Metacritic, which averages reviews from mainstream critics, assigned the film a score of 68 out of 100 based on 21 reviews, a rating that denotes generally favorable responses. Western reviewers frequently emphasized the film's breathtaking visuals, kinetic energy, and universal emotional appeal. Danny Stalnecker of Common Sense Media awarded Nizatu 4 out of 5 stars, describing it as a stunning animated action-adventure that is both inspiring and heart-wrenching. She highlighted the film's powerful central message about self-determination and redemption, writing, "It's an inspiring, heart-wrenching tale about how we all have the power to change our circumstances and make a better world." Stalnecker praised the film for its depth of characterization, particularly the evolving relationships between Ne Zha and Ao Bing, and concluded that, refreshingly, this sequel isn't just a franchise cash grab. It's a thoughtful, well-crafted installment in an ongoing epic that deserves its global success. Overall, Nizatu was celebrated not only as a monumental achievement in Chinese cinema but also as a global triumph in animated filmmaking. It bridged cultural boundaries through a deeply human story wrapped in mythological grandeur, earning acclaim for its artistry, emotional power, and cultural significance, a true testament to the growing influence and sophistication of Chinese animation on the world stage. One after their mortal bodies were destroyed, the spirits of Ne Zha, Lao 1/4 Yanting, and Dragon Prince Bing, Han Mo, share a new body while seeking immortality. But the safety of Ne Zha's home, Yanting Pass, is at risk. The rise of the Chinese animation Nizatu is mythically impressive. Directed by Jiaozi, a former ad man with a degree in pharmacy who taught himself animation, it has rapidly and unstoppably become the biggest film ever made in China, and the biggest animated film anywhere in the world, toppling Inside Out 2's record within 6 months. The original Ne Zha barely made a dent in the West and turned just under $4 million in the US. And about £50,000 in the UK, yet this sequel is now the 5th highest grossing film of all time, sweeping up over $2 billion in China alone. It is an ecstatic, superlative, firework-powered phenomenon. So, what is all the fuss about? If you've not seen the first film, not currently available on streaming services in the UK, then this epic sequel does its level best to catch you up at the start. With the frantically dense opening exposition, much talk of the wrath of heaven and a sacred lotus flower and the third son of Li Jing. For those who have not grown up on these myths, the story is partly based on the 16th century book Investiture of the Gods. Much of this might feel like playing breathless catch-up. This is a story of gods and demons and immortals, dealing in lore like the elixir Reparo, the sky-splitting thunder whip, the spirit pearl reincarnation, and the giant divine conspiracy. There are ancient armies, dragon kings, marauding giant turtles, sword-wielding squids, and an armored shark. One demon has a cat head. For the uninitiated, it can be a bewildering, dizzying affair. It wins no points for coherence or economy of storytelling. This is maximalist cinema at its most maximalist, throwing everything in the CH8 tilde superscript OF8 tilde inverted exclamation mark Hangshu C Sadilla C8 tilde inverted exclamation mark O, Chinese for a kitchen sink, at the screen. But if you surrender yourself to it and accept that you might not understand entirely everything going on, there are pleasures to be had. For one thing, the titular Ne Zha, Lao 1/4 Yanting, makes for a hugely engaging protagonist, a super-powered demon who is also an impulsive, cheeky preteen boy. The wrinkle this time around is that having been struck by heavenly lightning at the end of the first film, it's a whole thing. Ne Zha helpfully now finds himself without a physical body. His mentor, the immortal master Tai Zenren, Zhang Jiaming, comes up with a temporary solution. He must share his body with his frenemy from the first film, the elegant dragon prince Bing, Han Mo. The two characters constantly wrestling for control of the same skin, in a surreal spin on the buddy comedy, operates on a tremendous scale which even Hollywood studios dare not attempt. Ne Zha is the key to unlocking the film's eccentric sense of humor, which walks a tonal tightrope between high fantasy pomposity and wacky hijinks. At one point Ne Zha contemplates drinking his own puke, for reasons too ridiculous to explain, while in another early scene a flying pig openly farts in another character's face. Yet it is also operating on a tremendous scale, the kind of which even Hollywood studios dare not attempt. There is the odd influence from Western animation here, the character's cartoonish big-eyed character design, for one thing, or a moment where one character asks a magic mirror who is the fairest within 10 miles or more. But on the whole, this is film that feels distinctly Chinese, rooted in its wuxia traditions and the country's appetite for grand spectacle. The sheer size of the endeavor is quite something to witness. The animation studio, Chengdu Coco Cartoon, reportedly hired over 4,000 workers to produce it. There are more epic battles and acrobatic superpowered skirmishes than you could possibly count, playing out almost like extremely high-level Dungeons & Dragons combat. mind-boggling spells going up against seemingly limitless celestial weaponry. At one point Ne Zha beats up an entire mountain. Another fight takes place entirely on bamboo suspended over water, the kind of wire work a live-action filmmaker like Zhang Yimou could only dream of. The grand climactic showdown, meanwhile, sees dragons, demons and gods alike go to war alongside vast, churning clouds of millions-strong levitating armies, atop a giant city-sized cauldron. So, it's a lot. Even if you are a Chinese speaker, it's not clear that everything completely makes sense. Your eyeballs and understanding are constantly pummeled. The vast, precipitous exhibitionism of it all might feel a bit exhausting, especially over a 2.5-hour runtime. But this is the country's biggest film ever, and it's only getting bigger. As they, maybe, say in China, Yomazu a tilde squared Yomahu a ga diaresis. Go big, or go home. At once awe-inspiring, jaw-dropping, eye-rolling and head-scratching, this is animated cinema on a scale rarely seen. It doesn't always hang together, but on its box office achievements alone, Nizatu has earned a place with the immortals. Two good things come to those who wait. Rooted heavily in Chinese folklore, the whiz-bang, action-packed Nizatu welcomes newcomers into a dense and often juvenile initial hour, which can be a chore to sit through. But then, practically on a dime, it switches gears for its final 80-something minutes, swapping its toilet humor for mythological spectacle on a brain-breakingly enormous scale. The nearly 2.5-hour runtime might be intimidating for a kid's film, but this transformation is worth your patience. Stick it out and Nizatu will show you things you've probably never seen before, or even imagined possible. The 2019 original Ne Zha is, there's no polite way to say this, a fart comedy for babies with some supernatural battles on the side, and Nizatu starts out the same way. At first, its vivid 3D animation is geared towards endless gags about belly flab and bodily fluids, in scenes that last a painfully long time, and are bookended confusingly nondescript reaction shots. Ironically, this deceptively relaxed pace is in service of a million-mile-an-hour plot, centering on an often unpleasant-looking protagonist, Ne Zha, a Taoist deity reimagined as a fiery, magical imp with a menacing grin and distracting bags under his eyes. The story picks up where the first movie left off, after the adolescent Ne Zha and his rival turned bestie the graceful, cool-as-ice Sao Bing sacrificed their physical bodies to save Ne Zha's village in the Chentang Pass. Now their screwball, pot-bellied master Tai Zhenren tries to reforge new avatars for them using a magical lotus, one of several bits of Chinese myth explained faster than any outsider can comprehend. Things go awry, leading to the amusing comedic predicament of Ne Zha having to share his temporary form with Ao Bing's wandering spirit. This introduction also teases a spiffy character redesign for Ne Zha down the line. Before long, the last movie's scheming villain the lanky, stuttering Shan Gongbao attacks Chentang Pass once more, throwing us breathlessly back into a familiar plot. Only this time, Gongbao has an enslaved army of godlike dragon kings in tow, whose imaginative powers include magical claws that can pierce through space itself and create portals to eye-popping fiery locations and put countless innocents at risk of visually spectacular volcanic doom. As a Herculean quest to restore Ao Bing's physical form and fight back kicks off, pristine white castles in the clouds play host to both resplendent jade birds soaring through the air and eye-rolling slapstick gags. These tonal paradoxes gradually mount alongside a story that becomes purely expositional, given the English dialogue's clunky and all too literal translations. It feels, at times, like reading a translated wiki on investiture of the gods, the 16th century novel on which Nizatu was loosely based, while also having to dodge invasive pop-ups joking about barf and pee. But, as Ne Zha's journey continues and as he and Ao Bing struggle to share one body, a hidden complexity comes to light. The angelic immortals, who speak of maintaining the order of various castes and sects, send Ne Zha to fight demonic entities whose only crimes appear to be causing a nuisance, not unlike Ne Zha himself. In fact, these demons usually take the form of adorable, anthropomorphic animals, signaling to even the youngest viewers in the audience that something in this heavenly hierarchy is amiss. And then, as though a switch were suddenly flipped, The second of Ne Zha's trials becomes both physically and emotionally supercharged, and it feels as though an entirely different team of storytellers had taken the reins. The action, a mix of A70s style wuxia and supernatural spell casting, is colorful and electric, at times literally. The characters, once broad archetypes aimed at explaining the plot, begin to suffer unimaginable anguish as Nizatu's cutesy fatal Section 8 becomes genuinely nightmarish, evoking real-life massacres and even the horrors of first-century Pompeii. You know, typical kids' movie stuff. This head-spinning shift in tone is accompanied by fitting character transformations, as the once Dennis the Menace-like Niz is forced to contend with a more complicated adult world and the onslaught of difficult emotions bursting from within, threatening to shatter his fragile avatar. The sequel goes very quickly from facile to furious, taking shape as a humongous revenge saga steeped in betrayal and conspiracy as its characters search for the nuances within aesthetic extremes. With climax after climax, its action scenes become awe-inspiring, as thousands, if not millions, of either human or reptilian soldiers, as some are both, in the vein of Final Fantasy VIII, do battle in the sky and at sea, creating breathtaking vistas of glowing light against psychedelic landscapes. Although most setups extend to characters announcing special abilities as soon as they become relevant, one of the many influences from Japanese anime, the result is often mesmerizing. Between elemental sky battles and the emergence of as many extra limbs as are necessary to fire glowing arrows from magical wooden bows, you might recognize the specter of Akira Toriyama's landmark anime Dragon Ball Z from time to time. This marks the completion of a cultural Ouroboros, since Toriyama originally borrowed from Chinese epics like Journey to the West, which also featured Ne Zha. Not since The Lord of the Rings has any movie truly captured the enormous, religious scope of epic fantasy on screen. That Nizatu is already the fifth highest grossing film of all time, with a $2.2 billion box office take, will come as no surprise once you see it reach its gargantuan final form. What's more, these escalations reframe the comedy too, preventing scenes from grinding to a halt for the sake of crass caricature and ensuring that all gags are firmly grounded in action and character first. All the while, the storytellers never lose sight of dramatic moments, especially those between a fearful Ne Zha, voiced by Crystal Lee in the English dub, and his warrior parents, Michelle Yeoh, Vincent Rodriguez III, as his coming-of-age saga becomes not only about facing the cruelty of the adult world, but recognizing the injustice of its status quo, which Ne Zha and the other heroes seek to incinerate at the root. In an especially pleasant surprise, after an hour's worth of clunky dialogue, this theme of rebellion culminates in the most rousing line in any recent English-language dub, Lee's applause-worthy delivery of "If I can't be who I am, I'll just have to change the world." At a pivotal moment, imagination is no limit in Nizatu. After its scattered, slapstick initial hour, returning director Jiaozi rights the ship and strikes a magnificent balance between fist-pumping spectacle and tear-jerking intimacy. As if by magic, before our eyes a kids' movie about farts transforms into an emotionally rooted epic of religious proportions. The battle scenes take such dazzling visual form they stretch credulity, even in animation, resulting in a climax of jaw-dropping proportions. Its seemingly straightforward musings and simple characters are thrown chaotically into a darker, more complex world, which the impish hero Niz is forced to untangle during a rousing revenge saga at a scale of which you've likely never seen or imagined. It's pure, unfiltered spectacle. 3. Self-taught animator Jiaozi brings his sublime artistry to this pageant of Chinese mythology that has stormed the box office, currently the highest-grossing animated film ever. This Chinese box office obliterator is being touted as the long-awaited crossover point for the country's mainstream industry. Forget the adulterated, Communist Party-sponsored attempts at blockbusters of the past. Self-taught animator Jiaozi's film is an utterly self-assured pageant of Chinese mythology that, with head-spinning visuals, is a fine technical advertisement for what the country is capable of, in this case on a comparatively small $80 million budget. Even if, with its hectic flurry, there's still room for improvement. Dramatically demonic type Ne Zha, voiced by Lao 1/4 Yanting, and do-gooder Squire Ao Bing, Han Mo, born from two halves of this same celestial pearl, are rebuilding their physical forms through the power of a sacred lotus, but they're interrupted when their town Chentang passes invaded by razor-sideburn demon Shen Gongbao, Yang Wei, colluding with a gaggle of exiled dragons. One of them is Bing's father, who should be embarrassed to find that interrupting the lotus ritual apparently dooms his son. So Ne Zha, with Bing squatting his body, must make Fuxia Palace to ask void-headed immortal master Wulian, Wang Dishan, for help. Yes, keep that Chinese mythology Wikipedia page open while watching. Jiaozi effectively juggles lofty wuxia heroics with down and dirty humor among the commoners, like the demon octopus who barbecues his own tentacles for his troops to eat. The main comedy outlet is Ne Zha, a kind of gremlin astral boy bursting back into his own body when his supply of magic suppressant pills runs low. Him and Bing alternating as they battle a gang of club-wielding outlaw marmots is a highlight, amid a flurry of allegiance switches and betrayals that only make sense. The film's sympathies increasingly align with demonic idiosyncrasy over immortal righteousness. If the story is Chinese, this rather token plea in favor of misunderstood outsiders and acknowledging difference feels pure Hollywood. But so overwhelming is the art history, it barely matters. The main character's sassy mannerisms suggests Jiaozi has basic mastery of the Hollywood school of animation scripting, but his visual range extends thrillingly. There's a sublimeness to the work here, from the pagoda mountain of Fuxia Palace to a dazzling watercourse fight, that builds into almost scary extremes reminiscent of the apocalyptic leanings of Japanese anime. It remains to be seen if the film will become a box office bridgehead into American cinema, but the global dope-smoking contingent is surely one demographic that will love this wild and funny phantasmagoria. For Chinese box office fandom, Nizatu begins with a helpful recap for new viewers, and those already familiar with the franchise, to keep track of the elaborate tale. The animated sequel, which has been on a record-breaking spree since releasing in China during the Lunar New Year holiday and reaches North America today, expands on the characters and mythology of the 2019 hit film. Daman Orb Ne Zha, voiced by Joseph, and Spirit or Bing, Mohan, died at the end of the previous Ne Zha, or at least their physical bodies did. As the sequel begins, Master Immortal Jiaming constructs new bodies for them out of the sacred lotus. Unfortunately, Bing perishes before his soul can settle in, but Tae has an idea. Both Ne Zha and Bing can share Ne Zha's body for 7 days. If they can complete Master Wu Liang's, Dishan Wang, ascension trials, they'll win a magic potion that can restore the sacred lotus and make a new form for Bing. The shared corpus leads to some sequences reminiscent of Steve Martin in All of Me, as Ne Zha and Bing struggle to work out control at first. They learn to switch, and when Bing takes over, Ne Zha's form changes. As Ne Zha, his wide eyes often bulge in different directions. As Bing, Ne Zha's body softens and exhibits firm posture and more controlled movements. It's a shame this doesn't occur more often in the movie, since it's among the film's most captivating instances of magic. Because Ne Zha's on a quest, he leaves his parents behind. They were such significant characters in the first film. It's too bad they don't have more to do here. The animation, which involves human, animal and dragon forms, does not quite achieve Pixar-level elegance, but it more than holds its own. The rendering of martial arts battles is as graceful as DreamWorks Animation's Kung Fu Panda series. The myriad creatures should appeal to international fans of fantasy epics like Game of Thrones and Lord of the Rings. The sea dragons return from Ne Zha, long and flowing creatures like the kinds referenced in traditional Chinese dragon dances as opposed to the winged monsters of American fantasy. Creatures participate in battle scenes, such as an octopus man whose tentacles regenerate when cut off. Ne Zha's third trial introduces the memorable creature Lady Shiji, a cross between Snow White's Wicked Queen asking a mirror who is the fairest, and Medusa as she becomes a stone monster Ne Zha fights. The film gets a little too busy with all of the additional plotting outside of Ne Zha's quest and trials. To the movie's credit, writer-director Jiaozi names all of the characters on screen and identifies locations and significant objects to help viewers follow along in any language. But Ne Zha's hometown of Chentang still battles dragons, as 4 of their kings work with Abing's father, and celestial gods get involved, too. The sequel does not deal with time passing at different rates between the physical and heavenly realm as the 2019 movie did, and there is exponentially more mythology added to Ne Zha's story here. Once Ne Zha's trials are completed, there are still more battles and complications to restoring his and Abing's souls to separate bodies, let alone the states of Chentangwin, the Sea Dragon's nefarious plot, and further conspiracies introduced late in the film. Though always visually engaging, resolving all of this plot takes more than 2 hours and can feel exhausting. There are mid-credits scenes setting up further adventures of Ne Zha. In this first film, he learned the truth about his origin, and in Nizatu he truly grows up. With the success of the sequel in China, a third film seems inevitable, with the potential to expand further. 5. In 2019, the kid-friendly Chinese animated fantasy Ne Zha, about the enemies-to-friends relationships between a bratty preteen demon and a regal dragon prince, quickly established itself as the country's most financially successful animated movie. Some imitators and a spin-off followed, none of which featured the same winning combination of juvenile humor, spectacular action, and character-driven drama. This year, Nizatu dominated China's typically competitive Lunar New Year weekend and is now the mainland's highest-grossing movie of all time. It's playing a few dozen times per day here in New York City, and my audience at yesterday afternoon's Times Square matinee was very responsive. I can see why. This new sequel, about feuding dragons, gods, humans, and ocean-dwelling monsters, boasts much of the same qualities that made the first Ne Zha so charming, particularly its focus on protagonists' motivating emotions. Nizatu is a rare sequel that amplifies both its action and drama without sacrificing much of what already worked in the last movie. It's also a rare blockbuster that offers something worthwhile for a wide-ranging audience. Focusing on and cultivating the human emotions at the heart of Nizatu is no mean feat given its sprawling source material, the 2-volume mythological adventure The Investiture of the Gods. As with the many Journey to the West adaptations that preceded it, this and a handful of other riffs on the Investiture of the Gods, including the recent creation of the Gods 2, Demon Force, featured dozens of main and supporting characters, most of whom are united by convoluted backstories and Byzantine social hierarchies. Thankfully, it's not hard to follow or get drawn in by the exploits of the crass demon child Ne Zha, Yanting Lao 1/4, and his noble dragon prince buddy Abing, Mohan. It might, admittedly, still help to have seen Ne Zha before watching Nizatu, though you can probably still get the gist of what's happening even if you haven't. Everybody's recovering from Ne Zha at the start of Nizatu. Deep breath in. A battle is waged between the brave human residents of Chentang Pass and the dragon rulers of the Four Seas, though it stops quickly enough. Ne Zha's human parents, Lady Yin, Qi Lao 1/4, and Li Jing, Hao Chen, try to keep the peace while their boy flies off to Yuzu Palace so that he can become an immortal, which will in turn give him access to a magical elixir that will restore Abing to full health after the last movie's events. Long breath out. Unfortunately, not much about Ne Zha has otherwise changed since Ne Zha. He's still a lonely and wildly immature kid who doesn't know his own strength and only wants to play shuttlecock with his parents. Abing means the world to Ne Zha, partly because they're two halves of this same supernatural entity, the Chaos Pearl, but mostly because they bonded during the last movie. Together, they uncover a conspiracy that pits the belligerent and inconstant Dragon Kings and Queen against the benevolent-seeming Chansect immortals of Yuzu Palace, mostly represented by baby-faced beer-to god Wulian, Di Shanwang. Writer, director Yang, who returns after the first Ne Zha, keeps this sequel grounded by threading in little moments that credibly remind us how important family is for not just Ne Zha and Abing, but also their voluminous Rolodex of friends and foes. Even side characters like the surly demon Shangongbao, Wei, Yang, have a moment or two that reveals their defining need to either protect or please their loved ones. That means a lot in a mythological action-adventure that runs on giant-sized battle and action scenes as well as a number of poop, and puke jokes, too. Ne Zha's still a growing boy, after all a broken bar, The potty humor is consistently outlandish, if not always laugh-aloud funny, and while some subplots aren't as consistently well-developed as you might wish them to be, the action scenes remain a great showcase for both the animation team and you, too, since they're focused on both moment-to-moment and character-revealing details. Even the goofiest-looking creature I'm fond of the beefy-looking, trident-wielding shark move with a cartoon physics grace and integrity that makes this big-budget cartoon look like it was designed by its animators instead of assembled by a creative committee. Everything may look bigger in Nizatu, but it's still a fleet, eager-to-please kids movie about a gap-toothed demon boy who wonders if immortals poop whenever he's not tearing the heavens open with his bare hands. Another sequel will follow. Hopefully it will also deliver more of the same. 6 late in Nizatu, the record-breaking, box office behemoth of a sequel to the 2019 Chinese animated action saga. The battle between a clan of divine immortals and the grisly monsters they look down upon in an ancient realm of myth reaches such dazzling, mind-melting fever-pitch, one can't help but feel overwhelmed by the sheer volume of astounding effects and characters in relentless motion. The aerial clash turns so colossal, the fighters on both factions appear like minuscule specks in a flock of birds. By that point, one has likely already surrendered to the realization that keeping up with the intricate overload of lore at hand is a task that may require multiple viewings and non-stop note-taking. There are spells, curses, vendettas, a twist villain, giant dragons who turn into humanoid warriors and many other creatures populating the world of this gargantuan feat of eye-popping computer animation, surpassing its predecessor in all manner of visual ambition and kinetic intensity. The stereoscopic 3D and IMAX released Nizatu is breathtaking even as the screen and the narrative become as oversaturated as the viewer is overstimulated for nearly 3 hours. Back at the helm for this second installment, writer-director Jiaozi, aka Yu Yang, opens Nizatu with a swift recap of what transpired in the first chapter, namely that Ne Zha, La 1/4 Yanting, the unlikely hero who defied his predestination to become a villain, and his more composed counterpart Bing, Han Mo, developed a friendship and challenged the almighty forces that created them. They are two halves of the same elemental energy, A representing a sort of yin and yang dichotomy, A with Ne Zha being born of a portion known as the fiery demon orb and Bing from the complementary water-based spirit pearl. At the end of Ne Zha, the pair sacrifices their physical bodies to protect their respective clans. Bing was raised by dragons condemned to guard an underwater monster purgatory. Meanwhile, Ne Zha grew up around humans who, with the exception of his loving parents, were afraid of him in the Chentang Pass. Now, in order to help Bing's soul recover his tangible body, Ne Zha will have to hide his identity as a demon, overcome multiple obstacles to become an immortal, and obtain a miraculous elixir to aid his pal. Strategizing a way to pass the trials without being ousted as a demon, Ne Zha allows Bing's spirit to take over his consciousness. When this occurs, the face of the film's petite, yet unruly namesake morphs into Bing's more delicate facial features while in the same body. Leaning into the duality they embody, the character design communicates their distinct personalities. When Ne Zha reaches his full potential, his appearance changes from a cartoonish boy to a slim and handsome teenager with the too-cool-to-care attitude. How the artists reinterpret the design of the dragons as they take on a human form, with their reptile-like skin turning into an armor, also showcases the thoughtful craft behind the myriad of characters in the seemingly ever-expanding Ne Zha universe. Similarly, the production design of the spaces where the action unfolds reads both incredibly pristine and detailed. The heavenly abode known as Zutu Palace, where immortal master Wu Liangxian, Wang Dishan, who takes on great significance in the film's last third, is said to be made entirely from jade, and the texture and lighting on display certainly reflects that claim in a convincing manner. These accomplished individual aspects of the world building, as well as the impressive water and fire effects and the impeccable character animation, come together in the astonishing action set pieces. When Master Shen Gongbao, Yang Wei, a powerful being working on behalf of the Dragon Clan, slashes through the sky in an early scene, a portal is created to the dragon's underwater lair, unleashing waterfalls of scorching lava and a horde of monsters, setting the stage for an epic confrontation that threatens Yanting Pass. That's only one of several sequences written to creatively flaunt the prowess of the thousands of people who worked on these films. During another fight, Bing, in Ne Zha's body, faces an adversary with the ability to take the form of electricity and teleport through conducive elements like water. As rain pours over a lake, the electric charge zigzags through the sky for an otherworldly brawl in a movie that consistently delivers in-your-face visual spectacle. Like other Chinese animated features with similar scopes and vast mythologies, including The Storm, 2024, and Big Fish Begonia, 2016. The Ne Zha franchise suffers from dense exposition conveying the supernatural particularities of the legends and deities that guide the drama. Both Ne Zha films are based on a 16th century literary work known as Investiture of the Gods that features numerous gods and their divine interactions. In what appears like an effort to help the audience keep track of all moving parts, text on screen announces every new character, location and even the names of the weapons and techniques the characters deploy. Still, the amount of information renders it all dizzying. A maximalist concoction with humor that might puzzle Western spectators. Both Ne Zha films' mind laughs from showing him urinate. Nizatu finds its emotional core in the protagonist's heartfelt bond with his parents, in particular his mother, and in explicitly stating that those with an angelic exterior might in fact not be the good guys. The pariahs deemed monstrous, Ne Zha included, might have within them a more commendable moral compass. What's remarkable is that even if one fails at grasping in full the plot and its many conflicts, Nizatu has the power to flood the senses and convince anyone who watches it that they have just witnessed an animated production that holds absolutely nothing back. 7. Nizatu Story. The film follows the events after Ne Zha, 2019, starting with Master Tai Zenren, Zhang Jiaming, trying to bring back Ne Zha, Laowan 4th Yanting, and Bing, Han Mo, into physical form with the Sacred Lotus. Bing's father, Guang, the Dragon King of the East Sea, orders Shen Gongbao to attack Yanting Pass, leaving Bing to halt him while the task of embodying remains incomplete. Bing and Ne Zha share Ne Zha's body for 7 days, with the latter tasked to complete 3 trials so the Sacred Lotus can regenerate. Ne Zha takes sleeping pills, allowing them to share the body in perfect coordination, but only for a while. When Ne Zha believes his parents are killed, he sets out to destroy Guang and his palace. But is that all? Nope, there is more to it than meets the eye. Catch all the fun, excitement, and suspense in the cinema hall without any spoilers. Though it is a very basic script with no incredible conflicts, it still manages to immerse you in that world for 2.5 hours. The screenplay takes a while to establish a few points that don't feel necessary, but the visual grandeur and out-of-this-world action sequences keep coming one after another, making you forget all the flaws in the storyline and screenplay. The cinematic appeal of this film easily surpasses the likes of Laughter, Avatar, and Avengers if they were animated movies. Now you know how stupendous it must be. I couldn't believe my eyes for a while during the action sequences. The scale is enormous and simply unbelievable. I won't say outstanding, because it's something beyond that. So why the heck should one care about the plot? The emotional core of Nizatu is also dated, but for a moment or two, it does make you cry. I was in tears when Ne Zha finally hugged his mother, remembering all those naughty things he did over the years. I believe that scene will leave many children sobbing as they hold their parents close in the cinema halls. That's the power of cinema, right? Children can get emotional, and parents can become emotional seeing their children getting emotional. Too many sentiments and bonds to experience firsthand. Would you really miss that? The voice cast has done well, but this film is all about its visual expansion, setting a new landmark for animated films. Many universally acclaimed classics by Pixar and Disney must have had great stories and unique ideas, but the kind of cinematic spectacle this movie creates is next level. It is a never-before-seen visual treat. And there aren't just 1 or 2 scenes like that but at least 7 to 8. We have all seen big action sequences, blasting explosions, huge battles, large-scale combats, and stupendous sets in big-budget movies, But what if you see all of them in animated form achieved with just an $80 million budget? Isn't that a half-coma moment? I had to pinch myself to believe whatever was happening on the screen, and believe me, I did it at least half a dozen times. The water fight sequence, Ne Zha's transformation, Wu Liang's army, the volcano scene, and the final battle sequence. Everything is grander than before, never seen before, never done before. Nizatu movie review. The sound design is superb, and the cinematography is top-notch. I wonder how they even thought of those wide frames, close-up shots, fast-forwarded moments, and slow-motion sequences so accurately that everything looked absolutely mind-blowing. It's so wonderful to see an animated film that looks bigger and better than the much-hyped blockbuster, Avengers: Endgame. I mean, that's a lot to expect, and that's where Nizatu exceeds expectations and leaves you stunned and speechless. My grand salute goes to writer-director Jiaozi for creating this humongous cinematic experience that simply blew me away and everyone present in the cinema hall. My eyes were filled with joy watching something incredible, and my heart was filled with gratitude. How on earth can a Mandarin film be so grand and magnificent, much bigger than Hollywood? That's insane. Man, don't miss the IMAX 3D version. You'll be doing yourself a favor. Earlier last week, Nizatu became the first animated film to reach $2 billion in global ticket sales, making it the top-grossing animated film of all time after surpassing last year's Inside Out 2, a loose adaptation of the story of Chinese mythological figure Ne Zha as told by the 16th-century novel Investiture of the Gods. The film follows Ne Zha, a young boy born with the power of the fiery demon pill, as he completes 3 trials to protect his hometown of Chengtang Pass and save the life of his friend Bing. The premise itself is nothing new. There have been film adaptations of the story of Ne Zha since 1928, and Ne Zha's motivations at the start of the film mirror those of countless other animated films. However, where some movies might pull their punches, Ne Zha doesn't hold back, depicting themes as thorny as how violence is used to enforce and justify oppression with a clarity that many animated children's films would balk at. It doesn't hesitate in regards to animation either, with special consideration given to its stellar fight scenes, making it must-see at the theaters. Nizatu is a direct sequel to Ne Zha, released in 2019 on the cusp of the COVID-19 pandemic in China. The 2019 film covers the title character's origins and his evolution from a chaotic troublemaker acting out due to his loneliness to a still chaotic, but noble defender against evil. It also follows the formation of his friendship with Bing, a dragon prince who received the powers of the spirit pearl originally meant for Ne Zha, and the friendship's subsequent strain as Bing and Ne Zha are turned against one another. If you've got 2 hours to spare, Ne Zha is available on YouTube with either English subtitles and the original Mandarin audio or with English dub and closed captions, and it's a solid watch even if you're not familiar with Chinese mythology that inspired it. The first half of Nizatu is similar in quality to its predecessor, balancing cool fight scenes and charming character antics with the occasional gross-out joke that's a little too much. However, the second half is where it really locks in, with an inciting incident at a scale and intensity that I've never seen in an animated movie. Everything ramps up from there, the stakes are heightened, the characters and their motivations are tested and the action scenes get even more delightfully action-y. The execution is near flawless, and it wraps up with an ending that makes you eager to see where the story goes next and willing to wait the 5 or so more years for that story to get released. When I heard of Nizatu and pulled up the first film on YouTube, I didn't know what to expect. When I first took my seat in the theater to watch the sequel 2 days later, I was excited, but not entirely sure how a film I had only heard of a few days before had already outsold every other animated film previously released. By the time I left, I not only understood why so many people turned out to see it, but I wanted to make sure that other people knew to watch it too. It's a thoroughly entertaining film that deserves to be seen as unspoiled as possible, and I recommend that you go out and watch it. 9. Nizatu is Chinese movie that has already broken records in the animated movie field. Directed by Yang Yu, Nizatu was the highest-grossing animated movie of all time. As someone who had no clue about Ne Zha until the box office numbers, I was curious to know why this movie has made so much money around the world, especially when the first movie didn't make a huge splash like this one has. Anyway, following the events of the first movie, Nizatu is about the main character. Ne Zha goes on a journey to give his friend, Bing, his body back. While the concept is simple, this movie expands on the mythology of the first movie with the characters and the world while having many fights in between. Starting with the positives, the animation in this movie is a huge step above the first movie. The characters and world look so much better. Sticking with the fights and to say how great they look, the fight in the rain looked amazing and better than most animated movies. Next, the character development in this movie is phenomenal. You understand the characters better with this movie, and as an example, Shan Gongbao is fleshed out really well in this movie, making one of the best characters in this movie. The world building gets fleshed out really well with all the new characters and trails that Ne Zha has to go through. With the mixed, the emotional parts of this movie really didn't do anything for me. I can understand if they work on other viewers, but for me, at least without rewatches of the original and this movie, they didn't make me feel the emotion. This movie is 2.5 hours long, but this movie feels like it's 5 hours. This isn't a mixed because they do so much with that runtime via story, world building, fights, and character development that my opinion could change on that. Overall, this was a great movie with a few small issues and an improvement over the original. Everything the original does, this movie does it better and then some. I'll give this movie a 4.55 with me now understanding why it's making so much money at the box office. 10 If you only focus on Hollywood box office trends, you're likely trying to figure out how much money Captain America, Brave New World will make and not paying attention to the juggernaut that is Nizatu. The chances of you having heard of the latter are low, but you should be aware of it. Not only is it on track to become the highest-grossing animated film of all time, but it is so far the only movie to have made $1 billion in a single country, beating a $936 million record previously held by Star Wars: The Force Awakens in the United States. As of this writing, Nizatu is on track to make over $2 billion at the worldwide box office and has reached its first milestone in 11 days during the Chinese New Year holiday period, at the same time when Wu Wurshan's creation of the Gods 2, Demon Force continued to visualize the animated film's titular character in live action. Adaptations of the Investiture of the Gods and Journey to the West aren't new in mainland China and Hong Kong. Chang Che took many liberties with his Ne Zha the Great in 1974, for example. Still, the Jiaozi directed animated transposition of Ne Zha in 2019 was a remarkable high point in visualizing the character in ways that hadn't been previously thought possible, utilizing 3D animation to create a sprawling epic that opened the floodgates for an eventual expansion through various feature films exploring one of the most potent mythological stories in Chinese history. In 2023, Wu Wurshan gave Ne Zha the definitive live-action treatment with creation of the God's Eye, Kingdom of Storms, but he is not the main character of this planned trilogy and was relegated as a sidekick. Even if an action sequence that showcases his powers is one of the film's very best. The 2019 animated movie was so commercially successful that a dull spin-off set in the same universe, focusing on Jiaozi, was released the following year. Several knockoff animated efforts unrelated to the 2019 film attempted to recapture the same success of Jiaozi's movie but failed to instill any sort of perennity within audiences in its home country and abroad. When I saw the first Ne Zha in IMAX 3D in 2019 as a Westerner, I enjoyed its show-stopping visuals and the great message at the heart of the movie that encouraged children to be who they are and accept their individuality as a gift and not a curse. However, the character's significance in China remained a mystery until I saw Wu Wurshan's adaptation of Su Zhonglin's Investiture of the Gods a few years later and realized his importance in Chinese mythology. That's why I was slightly shocked that, not even a minute after IMAX tickets were on sale for one night-only early access screening, The entire auditorium sold out for the sequel and is now outpacing Captain America's ticket sales at my local venue in record time. Having enjoyed the first film without much caring for its spin-off, I couldn't imagine how the sequel would blow it out of the water, despite the massive amount of money it's currently making in Chinese cinemas and, finally, abroad. Curiosity got the better of me, and here I was, sitting in a sold-out theater on a Saturday afternoon, about to witness what will become the highest-grossing animated film in history in just a few days. After seeing it, not only does Nizatu massively improve upon the original's flaws, notably regarding its protagonist, but its animation is so staggeringly jaw-dropping that it may as well be positioned as one of the medium's greatest ever technical achievements, with visuals so potent it will take any audience member's breath away. Picking up right after the first installment left off, Ne Zha, La 1/4 Yanting, and Bao Bing, Han Mo, are about to have their bodies restored by Master Jiaozi. But when Ao Bing's body destroys itself before his soul can fully inhabit it, the Master tells him that he should share Ne Zha's body for a period of 7 days if they complete Master Wu Liang's Ascension trials. Should they be successful, they will have their bodies fully restored and gain immortality. For some time, Nizatu treads in simplicity as the titular character completes the different trials Wu Liang has set out for him. Occasionally bathing in gross-out juvenile humor, the movie loses momentum whenever any joke overstays its welcome, such as one action set-piece set around Ne Zha gaining strength by a broken bar, drinking his own vomit and proceeding to throw up some more. It's an acquired taste, but the small kids in the packed auditorium did laugh out loud. I didn't think it was particularly funny or creative, but that was a frequent issue with the first installment, too. It was, at times, too juvenile, while a few years later, Wu Rishan found the perfect balance between humanism and childishness with his take on Ne Zha's creation of the gods. However, Ne Zha accidentally mixing his urine with Wu Liang's holy water was very funny. No one is impervious to the contagious energy and childish humor emanating from this picture. If one joke doesn't get you, the other one most definitely will. What makes the first half of Nizatu so compelling, however, isn't necessarily its protagonist, who doesn't evolve much from the first movie to the sequel, up until a pivotal turn, but how each trial utilizes a bevy of powers that will all eventually coalesce during its thrilling climax, all differently treated through various generic conventions. The first trial is more comedic in nature, and its action scene has way more slapstick than the others, serving the small kids in the audience, it seems. The second trial has heightened stakes and is more martial arts coded than the third. A final battle to end all final battles, unashamedly blowing the portals scene from Avengers Endgame, where the movie's dramatic crux reaches its emotional apex. All of them are thrillingly designed, with a sense of scale so huge it can virtually put every single Hollywood animated motion picture to shame. Each action scene tops the last, with colors and depth of field so stark it almost feels unreal that such a production could ever produce images of this nature. Of course, as with Wu Rishan's creation of the gods, each modern iteration of the investiture of the gods tips the hat to large-scale epics such as The Lord of the Rings. Nizatu's opening battle that sets the story up in motion does feel eerily similar to the Helm's Deep Siege from the Two Towers, though with more otherworldly characters and mythologically charged imagery. It's only when the 144-minute-long film reaches its final confrontation between the multiple heroes and antagonists that it becomes way more emotional and intimate than its first part let on, with the twist repurposing the entirety of the story and making its stakes feel way more personal than they already were. Without spoiling a single thing, the emotional textures Jiaozi gives to the animation, shifting from computer-generated 3D to 2D during a pivotal moment, will make you gasp in excitement, unable to process how historical this picture is for the medium and how it's evolving animated cinema forward in ways that some of its strongest supporters dreamed of seeing. It'll then be hard to hold back tears when Ne Zha's parents, Lady Yin, Qi La 1/4, and Li Jing, Hao Chen, join in on the fight and do something that makes the protagonist feel his humanity so deeply that he'll never forget it. One could even hear sniffles in every corner of the room, where, at a critical turn, the large-scale canvas of its animation suddenly diminishes, and a real sense of proximity is felt with the characters, who are all given the right emotional tonalities by its main cast. When Ne Zha's transformation is complete and he finally reveals his full self to the audience, what happens next can't be described in words but begs to be experienced on your own. The work of transposing such an ambitious world through animation deserves the praise it has been getting, and perhaps even more than what critics have been lauding for the past few weeks in China. Simply put, Nizatu contains some of the most wondrously astonishing visuals of any modern animated offering, and maybe ever. What Jiaozi puts on screen is so ambitiously epic and emotionally soul-stirring that, regardless of whether you have difficulty attaching yourself to a story that's steeped heavily in myth-making, you're ultimately won over by how each emotional note is fed through its animation. There isn't a single stone left unturned in attempting to make this the most beautiful animated movie ever made, whether in its death-defying action, colorful characters, or comedy, which retains the juvenile spirit of the titular protagonist and smaller hit-or-miss doses than the first. Perhaps Western audiences who aren't familiar with the investiture of the gods may be lost in its introduction of side characters via text, who are never seen again, and how it lays the foundation of many fragmented moving parts that will undoubtedly have a role in a planned third installment, but it never feels convoluted, or overcomplicated for the uninitiated to dismiss it. As expected, Nizatu's end credits tell us to remain seated for a fairly long stinger, teasing that his adventures are far from over and will likely continue for years to come. If a $2 billion worldwide box office count is any indicator, we may get 15 more of these, either focusing on the character itself or on different figures from the investiture of the gods. Because Songlin's text is so dense and contains 1,000 different thematic underpinnings and storylines you can extract from each individual player, the possibilities are endless. Whatever they have in store, this franchise could go down in history as one that pushed animation in corners no one imagined and breathed new life in a medium frequently labeled as children's entertainment. If anything, Nizatu is an excellent reminder to anyone that animation is cinema and for everyone.